welcome and look for public comments. We are not joined right now of anyone.
Can we announce the date and meeting?
Oh, yeah. So this is the Richmond Parking Advisory Council meeting of Monday, September 9th, 2024. And we are commencing. So to start again, we are at the point in the schedule of looking for public comments and not seeing any. We're going to move on to additions or deletions to the agenda.
It's not totally an addition or deletion, but we did invite Chief Cambridge, who was not able to join us. He had a prior commitment. He did ask that we would forward him our next couple of meeting dates, and he would love to come to our next meeting.
So does that require further conversation?
Not here.
Okay.
We do need to come up with our next two meetings though, so
Yeah.
we can pass that on.
So let's,
But that's at the bottom, schedule next meeting. So we know it.
any other topics to change? Add? All right, we're ahead of schedule. Okay, for next topic is conversation regarding East Cochran Road parking between Winooski River Bridge and Edmunds Bridge, the new fog lines and their impact on roadside parking, and possible signage and ropes across the Edmunds parking area. Who wants to kick that off?
What?
You can go ahead if you want.
The only addition I had from my perspective is that I did have a conversation with Pete regarding roping that last little stretch between the bridge and the power pole across from the Edmunds Bridge parking area.
And what did he say?
We did not reach a finality. Pete has unfortunately lost 3 of his road people.
Oh my gosh.
Because right now, every excavating contractor in every town is poaching everybody else's people. And it's like this giant game of musical chairs, and people are willing to pay more than we're allowed to, we're able to pay, and he's losing people. So we'll touch on this again further down the conversation today.
Well, I drove by, I think yesterday, and I did have some further thoughts on the no parking sign between the Duxbury Road and the bridge, the Winooski River Bridge. And I'm not asking for any changes right now. It's fall, things are winding down. We don't know what's going to happen with the land trust. It's quite possible they would find the simplest thing for them to do is not to offer parking on their property unless they were pushed. But my take was that the no parking sign is not, and I think we've discussed this, is not where the traffic ordinance says it starts. It's actually towards the bridge. It has the advantage if people were coming and going into the former parking lot there, then no one would be blocking that entrance. And so if it were to open up next fall, spring, there'd be some sense in having the no parking sign there. And also it maybe encourages people to use that as a drop-off area. However, if the land trust doesn't open that up, I think it's best to have the sign reflect the traffic ordinance, and that it should be closer to Duxbury Road, and that there should be, if we wanted, or the town select board wanted, a 15-minute parking sign there for a drop-off. And I'm not asking anything to be done tonight, but I'm just gonna.
I'm sorry,
throw that out there.
the sign should be closer to the bridge.
Should be where the parking ordinance, traffic ordinances says no parking, says it should be, which is close to Duxbury Road.
Okay, that's so closer to Duxbury Road.
I have a question, which I guess maybe we can talk about next spring, but certainly we wouldn't need any permission to move it to where the ordinance was. Would we need permission to move it back if that situation changed, if indeed they opened it? Who has say on that?
I'm moving the sign.
Well, yeah,
Pete,
so it's up to, but from a legal standpoint, the ordinance is already changed, right? So we wouldn't need to do anything to move it to the further position, as you were saying. But we wouldn't need any other conversation than with Pete to move it back if we needed to. If we had to do either of those.
If he moves the signs.
Yeah.
And so we'd just be asking him to do the work.
But there's no legal change.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. My opinion is that seems to be working okay. There was plenty of people parking all along there. And I it seems they're treating that as a drop off, except occasionally early in the morning, there'll be some Fisher person down there and he puts his truck there, which is, I don't think that's a problem at all. It seems, I mean, once the 4th of July, when the police department was towing trucks that were in the intersection of Duxbury Road, besides, once that happened, everyone behaved themselves after that point, which was pretty amazing. So I don't really, I think it's working. I don't think there's any, I haven't seen any issue with people getting confused on the signage.
I think.
Yes, Chuck, do you have a question?
No, I just think, all in all, this is the second year that we really haven't had a test of the changes that we put in place. You know, and John, this is a good example because I talked about this before, and you and I talked about this before, is that sign just seems to limit parking that otherwise should be acceptable to the ordinance. But it just, this year again,
I think you're right.
a dream or a nightmare, depending how you want to look at it.
I think you're right.
Um,
When it was nice for the river, it seemed like it was being used well.
And I
That's the only
think,
thing I could say, is it didn't seem to limit people. They
I
seemed
think
to
the
take
fog
use.
lines. oh,
I
sorry.
think the fog lines have been awesome.
They've really helped.
Yeah.
And it actually allows people to park further, closer to on the road.
Yeah,
And so some of the concerns about the grade and stuff like that have been less. So it seems to be that people are able to park more safely.
I did ask Pete at one point in time, his thoughts on moving that sign. I think he said it was 20 feet or 25 feet to include some more good, solid, safe parking that and still keep within the means of the ordinance. And you know, he was up to his chin in alligators, and he said right now, he said that's just not.
you can't even mow.
Yeah.
Right, that's really what we're dealing with.
So, I would strongly suggest that we put that on our spring agenda to talk to Pete about, and I
Excellent.
think
Yep.
when he has.
In the
time,
land trust.
It's not hard for him,
And the land trust,
and the land trust. Yeah,
so to see,
You're
you
right,
know,
good point.
let's bring them all in this discussion and see, you know, okay, it's been a couple years, weird weather, the last two, you know, what's your thoughts? Back on East Cochran, the ropes or the signage, again, we're probably out of the season. But do we want to take that on to put that no parking ropes across from the Edmunds parking again? Because Pete's having a hard time even, like we just said, mowing. Or do we just let him do that?
I thought we decided last time that we could just do it. That's what I had.
Should we just
I
give,
don't think,
I don't know that.
I don't think we can officially determine that
okay,
that's a course of action that we can take.
right.
So
Do
that-
we
that-
need to do anything about it in September now? I mean, there might be a nice sunny day that 1 or 2 cars might park there. I mean,
I think it's.
can we put back on to spring
Yeah,
also?
I think spring.
All right, let's put that on spring. I'm totally okay with that. And then we can, things look brighter then.
Right, yes, I'm good with looking at these questions again in the spring, and along with we're asking the land trust about their plans for their handicapped and drop-off parking.
Yeah, they'd be done with Gillette Pond at that time. Yeah.
Just a related observation is that we go down there a lot, and these floods have really changed the topography. And it's a little bit more like it was before the Halloween storm a few years ago, so that there's not as much of a steady grade down there. I think there's still usable space, but I'm kind of curious how will that affect usage?
Swimming wise, I mean, or
Swimming,
physical
launching,
river
anything.
access.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
Beach
not
access is, the beach access is not as nice as it was
That's nice.
a
Yeah,
couple of
so
years
I don't
ago.
know if that'll affect demand. It's still, you know, you still reach it.
Same thing in our part of the river. We've lost our beautiful beach.
Yeah.
That we had.
Mm.
it's in line Peg's old house. That's totally changed now.
Yeah, right. So our beach is now like in Essex or something.
It's a Peg's yard.
Or James Miller's house.
Right.
All right, it's 6:11, but anything else on this topic?
So put off to spring, right?
Put off to spring?
Yeah.
Can we move on to the next? Everyone okay with that? Okay, so we're a little 10 minutes ahead. So the next topic is Dugway Road enforcement update.
No update.
No, that would have probably been a Chief Gamer's
Yeah.
question. Again,
Mhm.
we just don't have
Yeah.
reproducible data to even have this conversation, I don't think.
I think it'd be nice to have a conversation with them for what they were able to do, because there was a couple weeks in July.
Yeah. Yeah, they
Like,
did some
like,
elements.
can you let us, I would just love to hear, I find it really valuable talking to the enforcement end, to what works, what people say, what doesn't work, what would help them. I just like, I feel like that's a feedback loop I would like. So we could ask them that.
So, and the follow-up is, we're gonna give him meeting times and he's gonna pick one.
Correct.
And,
Although he did say he would make the next meeting, but I thought we'd be a little more.
yeah,
open.
and then we'll ask, if he could just bring us some update on the tickets or towing.
It's a good idea.
Diane, you're now gonna be the contact with him. on that.
Yeah, thank you for the phone number.
Thank you.
Anything else on Dugway Road enforcement?
It hasn't even been because of things being cooler and people going back to school and that sort of thing. There just hasn't been that much even happening.
Yeah.
There was one day about a week ago or so, but it was pretty busy, but there just hasn't been happening. Although one individual that maybe they were running or something like that, parked their car in our little drive area, and they parked their car right at the private drive sign.
I saw that. Didn't you put a note on their car?
I did.
I saw the note.
I did.
Lisa Miller, we'll let her in.
Oh, thank you.
Just have to admit straight up.
Lisa? There
she
you go.
is.
Welcome, Lisa. Welcome, Lisa.
She might just be hanging.
She just
Yeah.
got on.
Oh.
She's muted.
Okay.
Nice. All right. Okay, so we are going to go, we're ahead of ourselves a bit.
Number 5.
Number 5 is discussion regarding fee structure for violating town ordinance.
Again, a little bit of a Chief Cambridge conversation. We did have the fee structure last year moved from $25 to $50. We did survey the local towns, and even at $50, we are about half of what everybody else is dinging for.
Hmm.
I think that's a good Chief Cambridge question, but I think one of the things you do when you don't have a very large viable police department is you make the fines a little heavier so people, the word gets out.
And as we pointed out last time, tickets say $25. Some of the tickets. So I'm particularly interested in, maybe because I'm a Dugway Road person, I'm particularly interested in this issue, just following through with the chief on this and then seeing what can be done with the town. Maybe it'll take 2 years to change it or something, but I would like to see a heavier fine.
Okay.
Anything else on that?
I'll just, when I write the invite again to Chief, I will put in, these are the topics we want to talk about, the Dugway Road enforcement, East Cochran Road enforcement, and the price structure for tickets. And also, then I'll also ask, just their viewpoints. So I'll put those 4 things in there.
Okay, alrighty, if we move on to up to section 6. All right, update on Johnny Brook parking opening.
Okay, so, Josh and the select board and the state have come to agreement and signed a contract on that. Among the millions of things that Pete has been asked to do, he's been asked to mow that. Having a conversation with Merrick Giles is representing the cycling group and converses with me a fair amount via email and seems very willing to do whatever it takes to help. I ran by today to Pete the thought of someone other than him mowing it. He said as long as they just mow the parking area, he would be fine with that. I told Merrick that I would have that conversation with the group tonight. Sounds like he was willing to throw together a bunch of guys with lawnmowers and go down there and mow their own parking area.
So when Pete says the parking area, if I remember right, it was a little mosaic looking in the past.
And,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as long as Merritt and company know
Yeah.
it's not the whole area.
I think some of the poles are still there, and plus
Okay.
they had a pretty good map that
Okay.
that came out that I will make sure he gets.
Great. Thank you.
So the second part of the next part of that conversation is that we decided as a group that we think we'd like to do something a little more professional there than the stick and twig twine type of setup we have in there for fencing. Pete suggested that I to talk to Lafayette about doing something there. He was concerned that he raised thoughts that the 4x4 post with rope, although it would look good, might be difficult because a lot of that is blasted ledge.
No.
When they took out Conan's, the old Conan house up there on the hill. So the thought was basically to kind of throw it in FR Lafayette's lap and say, what would you do?
Who's Lafayette?
Yeah, me
So they do all the guardrails and all the
Oh.
signs for the state and all that. They're in Essex on Kellogg Road, actually,
Okay.
the lady who owns it, I went to high school with.
A private contractor that works for the state.
Yeah, there used to be Lafayette Sheldon, and now it's just FR Lafayette.
Wait, did I just hear you have a personal inn?
Well, no,
Wait, somebody's, did I just hear somebody's?
girl I went to high school with,
Okay.
now owns a company,
Okay,
but it was their father before
Very
that.
fond, okay.
Mike Sheldon. So
Gotcha.
there's that and all this. It's an Essex thing.
okay.
The other thing we had thought of in the past was, if that's the case, that large rocks, much like they have at the round church parking area, would be good. There's always a concern there about people backing into them and them not being as visible as possible. Not to mention that they wouldn't keep bicycles from riding into that swale, that grate and all that stuff. So kind of, my thought is to kind of shy away from that part, that option.
What did Pete think about the rocks? Or did you discuss it with Pete?
Pardon me. So discussing with Pete, he was worried about people backing into them. He thought typically they set them back far enough where plowing isn't a problem. I use around church as an example. You look at the rocks they have there. My concern was going to be the fact that the bikes can go in and out between the rocks into traffic where they're not patterned to be. I think I'd rather have something a little more structural there.
If we went with the contracting company, the Lafayette contracting company, we'd get an estimate, and then what would be the process for getting that paid for? Who do we
Good
have
question.
to ask
So-
and how much?
Hi, Lisa. So the thought would be, let's get a proposal from them. And then I can't help but think that somewhere out there, there's a grant or something that we could go after for bicycling groups and stuff like that, that might help us do something for that. But the first step is let's figure out how big of a project this is. If this is a $5,000 project, maybe Lisa could big deal it in through the select board and get it passed. If it's a $30,000 project, then maybe we want to try to find an alternate way of doing this.
Mhm.
Let's get a number, let's get a plan.
Sounds great.
Basically just going off the drawing that we're using for the state contract, shows off the shadowed areas and all that stuff. And again, let's I would thought, let Lafayette take a look at it, come up with a plan, and we can certainly talk to Effie Hard or anybody else who does fencing. The reason I asked Pete was I wanted to make sure it was something that he did not want to do.
Mhm.
Make sure I didn't, and he had no problem.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Tell him
take
to
something
leave.
off this plate.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
So
Great.
that's where that's at, and I plan on, before the end of October, sitting down with Lafayette, maybe doing a site visit there, if somebody wants to join me, and come up with a plan and see what we can do.
That sounds great. Feel free to pull any of us in, like
Okay.
especially in the interim, if there's gonna be a bunch of people mowing the grass down there, if you need some extra hands or,
And I did mention that we would, once it was mowed, that we would have a couple of recreational parking signs we can stick up down there.
And when you've been talking to the bike folks, they're good with those dates? They know it's seasonal?
The May 15th, November 15th,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
that's in that's in the state contract, so we
okay,
gotta be okay.
Great. thanks.
Is our PAC organization in any way responsible for communicating that any better than it is? In other words, if they do use it out of season, do we need to get involved, or is it with the town and the contract?
Good question. At one point in time, and I don't know we ever did this, we proposed to Pete that we have signs there that said that were seasonal recreational parking signs, May 15th, November 15th. And I do not believe those are part of the sign order, but I know that Pete's sign budget was 300% what it was supposed to be. So I get that.
Mhm.
So no, I do think we need to, I will convey that to Merrick, and see where he goes with that. But I think that's also an advantage of if we do a nice job with this fencing or rope fencing or whatever, it gives us the ability to close that off with additional roping and stuff like that, because we'd have signposts there that would say seasonal parking, blah, blah, blah.
That sounds
overnight parking and
fantastic.
things like that, and we could use those as roping things, but I think we all would like to have that be more presentable as people come into Richmond than it is now.
Thank you, Chuck.
Anything more on Johnny Brook parking?
Oh,
Yes,
the
Lisa?
young lady's got a question.
I had
Yes,
my
Lisa.
hand up, but it's masked by the background behind it. Anyway, it just crossed my mind. Talk to Duncan Wardwell if you need, able-bodied people to do mowing or something like that. We've got a lot of, I wouldn't call them tradespeople exactly, but a lot of people who are willing to help for a little bit here, a little bit there. Maybe they get $10, $15 an hour for 20 hours a week or something. And we've got a lot of people doing things like that around town, kind of informal staff. Might be something that helps you guys out at Johnny Brook.
So Duncan would have a list of people who he could reach out to?
I think so. I'm sure he has a mental list. I don't know if it's written, but Duncan's pretty good. I'm sure he's got a contact list. He could point you to Mow and Maintain, for example, does a whole lot of things around the park. Mullinger's Green, they take care of the bathrooms, after floods and so forth. They'll do just about anything you need. And there's several other vendors or individuals that fit the same bill.
Thank you.
Mhm.
All right. We're moving on to item 7, update on recreational parking impacted by July flooding. And I'll start by saying I mentioned what was going down on the Bombardier Field access.
Mhm.
So the topography's changed quite a bit. What else did we want to talk about in that?
I was just wanting to survey briefly how things were looking. I drove around. I don't know Dugway as well as others. That Overrockers looked good to me. That the land trust parking, the old canoe access off of Cochran Road that's been there forever, still had a big kind of muddy area.
Did you,
Such a
to-
mess.
when we drove down today, there's 3 big barrels blocking that entrance.
Oh, okay.
Did you know, anyone
No,
else
well,
notice that?
there was not, yesterday or the day before when I was.
I know, I
Oh,
think,
yeah.
I apologize. I was still typing overlocker. You're now talking about,
The land trust
Beacon.
parking.
the
Beacon,
okay, Beacon, thank you.
Beacon
Okay.
canoe access, just as I drove down to this meeting tonight, John, I noticed 3 big round barrels at the top of that. It's a mud pit down
It's
there.
really
I
bad.
was able to drive on
You
the
were-
right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, did you see that, were the barrels there
The
before?
barrels weren't there.
Okay, because okay, thank you for that, because I could, go, did I notice those before? Okay, they showed up today, blocking access there.
So maybe that's a land trust question. What's your plan? And we're assuming that they put the barrels up?
What's curious is that there's a large pile of material.
Mhm.
down
Yes, they kind of got plowed in them or bulldozed, it looked like.
there. Is that material was existing and put into a pile?
That on the left where it was wet, I speculated that someone had plowed it up into that pile
Mm.
Down at the.
down at the end.
Okay, yeah, okay.
So
But
you may-
I'm not certain, but that was my,
When you say material, earth?
Earth, yeah, gravel,
Mhm.
dirt, city gravel, really.
Maybe they.
My concern was that they hadn't brought material in to fix that parking lot.
are they allowed to, or is it flood
No,
zone?
they're not
They
all,
can't, they can't.
yeah.
Um,
John?
One thing, this conversation and the parking conversation of Bombardier, we probably do a check-in with the land trust.
Yeah, let's
and
invite them.
to try to understand, what are their priorities and see what their thinking might be with both of those areas.
That's a great idea. How about if we invite him, I mean, because nothing's really moving right now. Do you want to invite him in for a fall meeting maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it all, I was just quickly reached out to the land trust and saying, what are your immediate plans? Because, people still use that parking
They
lot.
do, they do. Now, the other one is open.
The other one, I saw that and I drove down it, yeah.
Yeah, and I thought it was in good shape. And I don't, this
The
would be
other
great.
one being the one just down the road.
Yeah, right next to it. Yeah,
Mhm.
just down the road, 50 feet or something like that, 100 feet maybe. That's a good question to ask them. You're right.
And, yeah, we can also talk to them about Gillette Pond, which probably should have been an extra agenda item, maybe. But anyway, so the idea would, just as a side point, we'll invite them to.
Invite them and I'm just not wanting to wait. We'll ask what the plans for the cones are in the immediate future. If I'm gonna move on my survey that Dugway Road the parts I saw were mostly back to normal. Is that accurate?
That's a fair statement.
Mm.
Some actually improved, I thought, some parking improved.
Yeah.
There's still a little bit of work that needs to be done on the section that you and I have talked about between us.
Just a corner there, yeah.
Yeah, that was kind of fixed, but it's still rough there. But not worthy of bothering people. at this point.
But I don't think we've lost any parking. I believe that because some of the deep trenching next to the road is filled in with silt, we've theoretically gained a couple parking spaces that are legit. Down below, down the Cochran Road side of where the 2-mile corridor begins.
Mhm.
Yes.
The very end of that, got a bunch of silt washed into it and actually created a couple more nice parking.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice,
So it goes from 16 to 20 or whatever, but
nice.
people that get it do a really nice job parking off the road. Every once in a while, I want to stop and put a sign on somebody's car and say, "Great job parking." And then every once in a while I go, "What were you thinking?" So yes, I think all in all, John, we didn't lose any parking spots on Dugway Road.
Good. And then I was on Snipe Ireland Road and it seemed like there's gaining of parking there where they did the road fixes, and that doesn't get maybe used very often, but it is class 4, and I think some mountain bikers
Up at
do.
the top
Oh,
there,
at the top, yeah.
Pressons.
Yeah.
Lost quite a bit in the first storm, right about 3,500 or so. And they filled that in. It's wide, it's huge.
Yeah.
it's-
Yeah,
It's
that's
impressive.
interesting. It was the only way out for a couple of
Yeah,
days.
yeah. We got friends up there that were stuck for 3 or 4 days.
Hmm.
What else did you see?
Those are the areas I drove. I don't know if anyone has any other spots they can reflect on.
Have you driven by the dam lately?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
Just
yesterday.
yesterday it
What's
was,
your report on the dam?
looks great.
damn good.
Damn good.
Damn good.
Tell them about the beavers.
So I don't know if you know, there's like little spots where the water, they're not done with it yet, but some of the water comes out and they go away on the weekends and the beavers build up sticks. I have a great picture of the sticks and then they come back on Monday and then they pull out the sticks and then continue. their
It's
work.
super cute.
So I'm really curious when they're done, what the beavers are gonna do with that.
What is gonna be in that? Is that gonna be a movable like sluice thing or? I mean, cause it kind of defeats the purpose right now. I mean, the dam looks done, sorta.
Right.
It looks really good.
So
I think it looks really nice there. They're not done,
they're
obviously.
not done, right?
Right, I think they have another month or so.
But
So
it
we
looks-
need to pick up a conversation with
Yeah, be nice, yeah.
Buffalo at some point here.
Oh.
See where we are, or is.
We're gonna
good with
wait,
that?
we're gonna wait a season or two.
Is that a Tyler
is-
conversation?
we were gonna wait another year, just let the parking be where the land trust is. We still haven't seen the end parking
Okay.
experience
Yeah,
up there
I
yet.
misunderstood. Done.
Was their intent to have that, just the, whatever it is, 8 spaces done for this winter, for the skating season?
Yeah, it'll be when they're,
Yeah, when they're done.
if they're, yes, when all the equipment, yeah.
And if we still continue to have icy winters for skating, I think it's fair to assume that if there's a big skating party there at the dam, that there won't be sufficient off-street parking. It could go back to the way it was, that there's unenforced parking on days when there's a lot of skaters there. They park on one side of the road, maybe they don't create much problem.
Why don't we
But-
add that to our Chief Cambridge questions? See how he feels about that, try to get a unofficial official statement.
So
That
I'm
make
gonna,
sense?
Unless we think it would cause more trouble than it needs to, I don't
so
know.
that's no, this is a really interesting point. I hear you. I don't know.
So you're saying we may sabotage the plan by bringing attention to the plan.
Well, that's my question, yes.
Asking for a
That's
friend.
Legit comment, John.
I think
Yeah.
it's very legit, John.
Okay,
Yeah, I think
I
so.
really do.
So let's wait till it becomes an issue or not.
yeah,
I'm in
I'm gonna
agreement.
put it this way.
okay,
If Chief Cambridge is here and John brings the subject up, we'll talk about it.
okay,
John, I won't bring it up.
okay, okay.
It's really, everything reforms. And like you've been watching Dugway's reforming and I have no idea how, that one snow day where the snow bank gets pushed back a little bit more, you might actually have technical off-street parking. It's hard to say at the, sometimes that area seems really wide to me in there. It all depends on how much snow we get, how far it's pushed back, and what is the traveled portion of the road at that time.
And it's hard to it's very difficult to make a policy one way or the other, knowing that what was given to you this year can easily be taken away next year. So to have a policy for a parking area that suddenly showed up is difficult because it may not be there next year.
On these dirt roads that morph and change with the weather that we've been getting.
I think the travel portion of the road parking, once a state thing, so it's not an ordinance, it's a statute, makes the most sense. You've got a little berm there and you get off the road, good for you.
Good for you.
May not be there next year.
Travel portion of the traveling road. Um, just a point of order here is that I noticed that, are we ready to move past to item 8? None of us caught that, but that's a duplicate.
Oh, yeah.
I assume that for item 8,
Oh, I see. Let's
you
just, can we just,
probably meant to put in, because I don't see listed here, the social media.
Okay,
policy issue.
well,
Did I mess it up when I edited it? I'm
no,
not
that's okay.
sure.
That's okay.
I may
But
have given you a message.
I just would note that we just had a discussion of Gillette Pond, which was not officially added to the
Right,
agenda, but we sort of took that slot. So maybe we didn't, what you just talked about, social media, is an interesting thing to discuss. Can we, we're way ahead of schedule. And once we get to approval of the minutes and scheduling next meeting and topics, so that's a substantive thing. I would suggest that we insert that, a little bit of a flaw of order, but
for number 8, John?
yeah,
Yeah.
so we had a conversation about Gillette Pond.
Well,
And
I think that can be folded into just.
yeah, I think so too.
I think
Yeah.
Gillette Pond was part of the
Because we also
July
discussed-
damage.
July damage, okay,
Yeah,
well, yeah. But do we want to talk about the social media?
Well, I think
Uh,
we do, because,
Yeah.
you guys saw my email, part of
Yeah.
part of my homework was to get in touch with Josh and, so, I thought that Josh's response was, well, pretty much what we all expected.
do we want number 8 to be social media?
Yeah, can we do that?
I'm
I don't see why
okay
not.
with, let's do it. Any objections?
We don't need to, I don't know what we do in Robert's rules. We move to change that, but yeah, let's go with that. So social media, keep going, Matt.
Well, Josh did respond to my inquiry indicating there is no official town policy. And that, he was, aware of, kind of a more unofficial one of folks not responding, other than in a formal way. I don't think, I'm not recalling right now what he said in the email, it also refresh my memory. I don't think he indicated that there was a prohibition on private responses. But he agreed with my general notion that private responses, maybe it's wiser not to do it.
Well, you can read it if you want.
Yeah, sorry. Just read it into the record. Matt, thanks for the update on the PAC's approach to post on social media. We do not have a social media policy for committees. We do have a policy for employees, but it does not extend to committee members. It is attached in case you'd like to review it. If anything from this could be applied to committee members as guidance, I would think it would be the section about being very clear in any post regarding town committee business that you are posting on your own opinion and not the official opinion of the committee or the town. Though there could be open meeting law violations if a quorum of committee members engages in the comments on social media on a committee topic. The safest approach is probably the one that you are using of inviting people with questions, concerns to attend a PAC meeting. That way the full committee can hear the issue and discuss in open meeting.
And that was specifically referring to Front Porch Forum.
Mhm.
And that, well, that was the context of our previous discussion last time, but I don't think we necessarily were limiting that to Front Porch Forum. It could be Facebook or whatever. And I gave further thought to it and just realized that even though I'd love to respond, even in my individual capacity about some of the things that people post about use of the river, I'm just not going to for so long as
Yeah, I think I said
I
this.
remember the committee.
Yeah, I think I said this last time. It doesn't matter that you say it doesn't represent the committee. You know, we were told that as a company level, you're always speaking for the company because you're associated, and it's really a perception issue. It's not what your intent is, it's what it's perceived.
Right.
That's fascinating.
Better not to you know, unless it's something that, you know, you really have to speak your
So
truth.
even saying like, I'm not speaking for PAC, I'm speaking for myself, a resident who lives at this address, is not okay.
Yeah,
Well, I think we're
The shadow
deciding
still
that.
falls on-
The shadow
the
still,
shadow
yeah.
still-
I mean, it's just like your great observation is when you say don't or not,
Mhm,
people forget, you know,
mhm,
I am speaking for the.
mhm.
I think it's been pointed out that some folks on other committees have from time to time posted things saying they're not posting in an official capacity, but it sounds like we, as the PAC committee, are saying that we feel that it's the wisest thing to do, to not respond in any.
I like the general responses. Thank you for your input. Come to our meeting.
Yes.
Because it's not saying, then we can have the conversation, but we're not gonna have the conversation. It just-
Then I can talk about, you know, navigation.
Right.
And navigable rivers and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, and then if the haters don't
Well, the,
want to have enough energy to come to the meeting, then.
so but I also don't think we should say that publicly out on these forums.
To come to the meeting?
Yeah, because once, do you say it every time somebody makes a comment? Do you only pick the ones out that you're gonna comment on? And all of a sudden it becomes like, oh, here they go again. They want us to come to their meeting. Like, I think I am of the, no word at all. If you want to contact your neighbor who's having issues with something privately, saying, hey, come on to our meetings, you have some good points out there, or that's my personal opinion. I feel that watching the ping pong ball go back and forth to who's responding and how it has this, it goes on and on and on, that sometimes you pick up the wrong thread because you didn't read the other two. It's like, what are they talking about?
So are we suggesting then of not, at least in a public sense, using Chuck's draft? We're suggesting not doing that. And
We're saying,
instead, maybe send a private email saying something politely, if you feel strongly, feel free to come to one of the meetings.
We hear this out there.
Oh.
Come on and
particularly
join
front
us.
porch forum, I mean, every time we have a meeting, it's warned twice on front porch forum. Shows up in Duncan's notes for meetings of the week, and then the day of, it shows up there with our agenda and all that stuff. So I mean, it's out there.
In terms of what you said, Diane, about, you know, even by not commenting, we're commenting if we say to a particular topic, why don't you come to our meeting? If we reached out to an individual who had posted and said, hey, got a point of view, if it's not in that public forum, how do you all feel about that? In other words, we're not making it public record that we're inviting you, but we are reminding the person in a side channel as individuals to come, you know, feel free to come. Everyone's welcome to all of these meetings. Is that the same thing?
I don't want to speak for Diane, but I think what she's saying is that if Diane writes a note on there about parking, I go, okay. And Matt writes a note about parking, and I go, yeah, okay. And then John writes a thing on it, and I write to John, I say, John, you should come to our next meeting. And I missed
It's me and
you and I missed Matt. Then that's not kosher. That's not very professional of me. And I
Okay.
think you're saying I might
So-
miss one of those.
if that's always our response.
Yeah.
If we, and that's exactly what I'm saying. Thank you, Chuck. We'd have to be on it and we have to decide, like, well. And there's some people who just really want that public forum to have that discussion. They don't want to come to our meetings. And we have to understand that that's their method of getting their thoughts out.
I have no interest right now in responding to anyone on Front Porch Forum. I have a question for Lisa. We're ahead of schedule. When Jay puts stuff on Front Porch Forum, does he get permission from the select board, or is he just entitled to do that? And are we different than Jay?
Good point.
That was, yeah.
Jay does a lot of things that are fine. And, you know, Jay's speaking for Jay. Sometimes Jay will put out information that he thinks he's trying to be proactive, essentially promote the message that may be a bigger message than just from Jay. it's not the official message, but it's good information and he wants to be sure that people hear it. So I don't have a problem with that, and the town doesn't either. Jay's got a pretty good sense of where the line is. You know, if it's an official decision, Jay can't make that as an individual. You know, it has to be done at a board meeting, an open meeting, and then we issue something that's a decision. Yeah. But everybody has opinions, and I think, you know, an informed person can have a very valuable opinion about something. It may not be an answer, it may not be a fact, but it's a good opinion, and it may get somebody thinking, you know, to the next stage. So those are important. You know, gentle guidance, informal guidance, that sort of thing is what we all operate on day to day. And it's valuable. And, you know, you get 5 answers from people quickly, you probably got 5 different answers and you got a lot to think about. So it's, or if you get the same answer 5 times, you probably have the answer. I guess that's the value in just informal discussion. And if somebody really feels strongly enough about the issue, then they should take it to the next level, come to an official meeting, whatever it is, you know, your meeting or a select board meeting, or write something in Front Porch Forum if they really want to run it up the flagpole without having to be responsible for it. That happens too. So,
So,
Mhm.
so if Jay can put stuff in Front Porch Forum, not say this is my own personal opinion, have it in his select board as being his title, then maybe it's not advisable, maybe it's a bad idea, but perhaps any one of us could do the same thing if we chose without someone reprimanding us.
Yeah, there's a line in there somewhere, John. And I know we all want to know where it is. If Jay has heard something at a meeting, a select board meeting recently, or it was discussed at a select board meeting, I feel he's entitled or permitted to broadcast that. He's not the official communication outlet, but if it has happened and it's in the record, he's welcome to talk about it. You know, he's not going anywhere that hasn't already been plowed. That's plowed ground. And Diane, what were you going to say?
Jay's responses to me seem for clarification.
Mhm.
So I often read his answers by filling in the blanks that, well, this happened, this, and then this, and then this, and this is where that money went. And
Mhm.
I always feel like he's giving more of a background and more clarification as to the issue.
Right.
And I think he sometimes, his responses help end some spirals that might have been occurring with misinformation. So I feel like
Mhm.
he's active in that way. I appreciate his responses out there for clarification and history.
Good. That's why he does that. I think I'm trying to read Jay's mind, but Jay has a strong urge for people to be well informed. And, you know, getting half the story is not being well informed. And a lot of people only half inform themselves because they don't get the other half. So if Jay sees that, he feels it's a personal duty of his to connect the person with the other half of the truth, you know, if he knows what it is. And I respect that. It's not everybody takes that time. Not everybody can do it accurately. I'm not a good person to do that because I wander off verbally, and, you know, I'm somewhere where I didn't mean to go. So it's, Jay has a knack for that, and I think it's helpful. And if it isn't, you'll hear about it. I mean, Jay will hear about it.
So let me give a for instance,
Mhm.
for us. What if there's a Front Porch Forum discussion and someone, and this happened a few years ago, somebody refers to the Huntington Gorge as a state park.
Oof.
We all know it's not a state park.
Right.
So would it be appropriate for one of us who maybe lives on the road or something, to
Mhm.
post something very simply saying it's not a state park, or it's privately owned,
Mhm.
or do we just see if the discussion drops off from Front Porch and just let it die of its own accord?
So I think presenting the facts is always a good thing. It doesn't happen often enough in this world. If you know for a fact that, you know, something is correct and it's been stated incorrectly, you don't have an obligation to correct it, but if you have an opportunity, that's up to you. I think that's a public service, and thank you.
you were gonna,
I think, although we're talking about all responses to front porch forum and social media, you
Mhm.
always have the ability to email the poster directly.
Also,
And not the forum, which would be, in my mind, a good vessel to put out there and say, just so you know, this is not a state park and there is no whatever, things like
Mhm.
that. And one thing I've been watching lately is you've been watching the pickleball.
Ugh.
thing on front porch forum. And that's gotten very hot, and I noticed that none of the committee is feeding the fire. My suspicion is there'll be 2 or 3 more posts and it'll fade away and we won't hear about it again. But they are obviously choosing the don't defend myself, don't defend the decision role, and just letting this run its course.
Mhm. Mhm.
It seems to be 50-50 as to how it's being accepted. So,
And I also like to remind PAC that Josh is really happy to put out a statement about anything, like, on our behalf, that we don't even have to put our names on. He's said that to me years ago. He says, so he's the one who put the one out about the ordinances, and, I wrote it, but he put it out there. And so if we ever encounter a strong statement or some policy or whatever, we can develop it and put it out from the town, and Josh is our town representative, and so, so he's happy to do it too, if we chose not to do it. So that we have courses to communicate with the public at every different level, personally or from a town statement, or as Jay's doing, to give information. I personally will not be involved in any of that. Just letting you know, but I will talk to anyone privately.
it does bring us back a little bit to John's question. And that was, I don't believe that PAC policy should muzzle an individual's interest in responding. So John says, so Jay responds, why can't I respond? I think that's what you're saying.
Yeah, and I wasn't saying that there was any instance
No,
where I
no, no,
wanted
I
to,
know,
yes,
but
yes.
I think it's legit, and
Yeah.
I think, thinking of myself, I'm not sticking my hand in the fan, so I'm good not going.
So I think the conversation about what Jay does and when he does it, I think we're not saying we can't, just to exercise restraint. Think twice, write it once, think twice, make sure you're not,
Mhm.
putting us in some sort of controversial. If it's correcting something, or, if you really feel compelled as a private citizen to do it, you could. So it's just the idea of not to jump into the fray of every conversation. So it's really just it's a common sense with a bias.
So the common sense that John and I privately have is that if you really have a burning urge to write something, write it, don't post it, and show it to somebody else in 24 hours.
Actually, show it to Diane.
And have somebody else read it before you post it.
Yeah. That helps me so much in my profession.
And yeah, because sometimes I want to say something quickly, but yeah.
But we're calling this a policy. The policy would theoretically, voluntarily or not, would say we don't respond to this. That would be our policy, that none of us respond to these posts. So what you're talking about, not having a policy, you're talking about showing great restraint.
Guidelines, yeah,
Coming
restraint.
But
Yeah, I know
but you're not
you're
necessarily.
not muzzling. I think that's the worry that I would have, is sort of your point, is that we would, if we didn't allow for what you said, we're potentially muzzling somebody here who's got a legitimate concern.
Right, like Matt talking about the rivers.
Yeah,
maybe some, yeah, in rethinking.
yeah, if
this,
we made that
maybe-
a hard rule, that
yeah,
wouldn't be
maybe
fair
someday
to
I might
us.
want to post something.
Yeah.
If it were strictly information.
Like,
Or even if even if it's a strong point of conscience, of one of us, we don't all, but just not do it flippantly. Don't do it all the time. So it's more of a guideline, not a hard, fast rule.
so
Is that too wishy-washy?
No,
it's not a policy.
It's
Right.
not a policy. Sure.
Policy is we have no policy. No,
Well, up till now, we've used the term policy, that our policy is we're not responding. And now you're saying, yeah, that's a policy, but we're gonna think it through real well before we respond. Well, that's not a policy.
that's not a policy. It's a guideline.
So look, I'm okay with this, but I just wanna know, let's officially ditch that this is a policy if we're gonna find
Yeah, okay.
other ways, if we're not gonna always do it. And maybe the answer to Matt's, do we all approve what Matt's gonna write? I don't wanna do that. I trust Matt. So so we're not gonna have a policy. We are all gonna throw judicious restraint and try to make fools out of ourselves on social media.
Well, you've got permission to make your fool out of yourself. just not out of the group.
Well, and
The shadow falls on everyone.
and anything I write would be vetted by Carolyn anyway. So,
Mhm.
Okay, so
okay,
That was a good discussion, y'all.
Good.
Thank you. Thank you, Lisa.
Yeah,
Really?
my observation is you all have good judgment, and that's what'll save the day. And I don't know how
That's
you
your
teach judgment. Yeah, I don't know how you teach judgment to anyone, but you kind of know it when you see it, so.
Okay.
All right.
meeting minutes.
So we are now at point 9. And we're still substantially, we're 40 minutes ahead. And it goes to approve the August 5th meeting minutes.
I have one, suggested correction.
Okay,
I'll read it. The consensus regarding the Edmunds Bridge parking area is that it is best not to have parking across the street. And I would change that to suggest or something else that's similar. The majority agreed regarding the Edmunds Bridge parking area is that it is best not to have parking across the street.
okay.
So the point was consensus versus majority.
Majority.
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
fair.
it's
think
in
that
the
was true.
ordinance also.
Oh, it is.
Okay, fair enough.
But in terms of representing what really happened, yeah.
Okay. Okay,
Any other comments? All right, then we're moving on to item 10.
So there,
Yeah.
Oh,
You do.
oh, did we move the minutes? I move that we approve the minutes.
Second.
I,
I,
Aye.
okay.
Okay, item 10, schedule next meeting, and I'm gonna put a parenthesis S on that. So were we gonna try to,
yeah, we're gonna.
I think we want to, we've talked about bringing Chief Cambridge, making one of those things work for him, and then we've talked about reaching out to the land trust. Do we want to ask them when they might be free and schedule around that, or do we want to give them 2 choices? It's too easy to say no to one date.
Believe I told him that we would look at our next few meetings and we would forward
Yeah.
those dates to.
So let's look at the next
I'm not,
few
I'm
meetings.
not even totally opposed to trying to finish the year out with some scheduling, but if our calendars aren't that current, that's fine.
So according to the calendar online, our next meeting is October 14th. Does anybody see anything different than that?
Works for me.
So
next meeting
10,
is October 14th.
yeah. John, are we around? Do you have your calendar there? So your calendar really.
I'm sorry.
And then after that is 10/28.
It is Indigenous Peoples' Day.
Does that mean that we should not have a meeting on that day?
That's an interesting question.
I guess it's kind of up to us. I mean,
Devil's advocate, if this is supposed to be an open meeting, might someone be traveling, or might someone, in those communities
well,
be
that's a good
offended?
point, yeah.
I have no idea. Is it a?
are there any, does the town have any other meetings that day?
No, we're the only meeting.
Were some postponed because of it?
Good question. I do not know.
What about the 21st then?
21st is when the select board's happening, so we can't do it that week. The next one after that is the 28th, which is neither here nor there. I am okay with both of those days, but remember, we kind of wanted to do one a month, was it? We still wanted to just pick one of those? I'm okay with the 14th. Well, we have,
Lisa, do you see any objection to are we gonna offend anybody by meeting on the 14th?
I don't think so. I mean, I have to look at the calendar to know when that is. Actually, it's not it, you know, we've kept it because of the federal calendar. The federal workers expect to get that day off because they always did. And, you know, it kind of trickles down from there. That's why we have it. So that's about
Right.
the extent of it.
I think the 28th is too far out.
is it too far out to get? What is it that we want to?
Well, we
If we
wanna-
want to do one a month, is it better to do it in 2 weeks or? That would be 4 weeks. Yeah,
Well, I'm thinking we wanted to set 2 meetings to give choices to Land Trust and Chief Cambridge.
okay,
So that October 14th takes care of October, and then we can look in November.
so give both of those. Give them both those dates and see, does that,
I'm sorry, maybe I'm not being clear. I was
So
thinking of October 14th,
mhm,
nothing else in October,
okay,
and then choose something in November. Maybe, yeah. That was my thought.
in November, we meet on we're scheduled for the 11/11.
And we're likely to be out of town, right?
I don't know. Yes, we haven't made the plans yet.
So we're already scheduled for an October 14th meeting, so there's no,
We are scheduled every 2 weeks,
but
Is that-
that's already on the calendar.
It is
so
on
we
the
just need to
calendar.
eliminate.
the 28th.
Is that Veterans Day? 11/11?
Think so.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's Veterans Day. Yeah, it is. There's also a difference in when some people observe Veterans Day.
11 day, 11th hour. 11th hour.
And that's as far as we go, I think. Let me see. What's this one? Page.
That's funny.
We're on the 25th, which I can't imagine doing it on that day in November. So it would be good, we could grab a first week of November or beginning of November date. We do not have.
That would be
plans
the
on
5th.
11th, yeah. What was that?
The 5th would be the first Monday then?
So the 5th would be, yeah.
If the 11th is a Monday,
Mhm.
then that would be the 5th.
11 minus 7 is 4, or am I counting wrong?
I'm sorry,
Wait,
you're correct. So, yeah,
and
Fourth.
the election day is the
4th, that doesn't,
5th, but
The 5th.
okay.
So the select board's on November 4th. We could have it that week, though. We can ask for,
We've had it the same day, haven't we, in the
As the select
past?
board?
They're here and we're down there, or
well,
am I
there's
mixed
two,
up?
there's water, on the 4th, there's water and sewer,
Oh.
6 to 7, select board 7 and
I
9.
see.
But that,
we've done it on a Thursday before.
mhm. Yeah, we could do it on another day. When is election day?
The 6th.
Second,
Sixth,
6th,
oh, okay.
6th. The 6th?
Wait a minute,
I need a real calendar. Let's do that.
Oops.
we should pull up a calendar.
Yeah,
Something doesn't
pulling up a
feel.
calendar right now.
I think it's the 5th.
Yeah, you're right. It's a Tuesday, the 5th.
Okay,
Mhm.
Well.
Nothing else going on that day.
All right, so for right now, would we just like to say to Chief Cambridge, would you want to give him 2 options of the 14th and the 28th? Or the 28th? Or do you want to just say, hey, are you available on the 14th? let's just say the 14th. If you can't make it, we'll give another date. How about that? All right. You all right?
Sounds like a plan.
So we know the 14th.
Okay,
You all good with that?
November 14th?
No,
October.
October
October.
14th. October 14th. We'll get together again and
Yeah,
then
that'll
we'll
be fine.
see how we're doing
Yeah,
in November and December.
Right.
And did we throw a November date out there? Or we were gonna hold
Well, it
off?
looked like the
we're talking the 5th.
11/11 is our
11/11.
next day, but John and I may or may not be here.
And we have, correct me if I'm wrong, we have met when the water and sewer and the select board were meeting at the same time.
Right, they meet here, we meet there.
Yeah,
Mhm.
That's never an issue.
So, so the water and sewer meets here, we meet over in the small room, and then water and sewer leave and select board comes in. Is that how it is?
that's what I thought, and
They'll be back to back here.
Okay, all right.
not that we should meet on the 4th, but
It's
the room will be available.
all right. That's good to know, John. Okay. All right,
Okay, what regarding November 4th?
nothing.
Okay, okay, thank
To be determined, on October 14th.
okay.
How's that?
All right. Are we adjourning?
We're gonna
So-
get rid of that S after meeting.
Okay, so meeting, but we could, let's just say that when we reach out to specifically to Chief Cambridge, if he can't make that date, maybe we feel him out for when he might. So we don't, otherwise we may not converge on him.
Okay, that makes sense.
We're offering him 2 dates, the 14th and the 28th. Is that
We're offering him-
my understanding?
Just the 14th,
Just the 14th?
Just the 14th.
just the 14th. Is
Okay, and if he says yes, are we gonna ask the land trust if they wanna come too?
that packed in too much? Okay,
Think so.
so we'll have land trust come in maybe at
What do you
7.
think? What do you all think?
Sure. Chief Cambridge at 6 and land trust at 7. How about that? Sure. Who's gonna invite the land trust? Would you like me to do that also?
Yes.
Do both of those invites and I will copy another person on there just so I have, okay, somebody else is looking. Okay,
And, okay, so moving on to item 11, which is topics for next meeting agenda, we've picked up several. One is the land trust thing, several topics for Chief Cambridge.
Yeah, I've got 2 lists going. I've got a list for things for next meeting, and then I've got spring agenda items.
Mm,
So we kind of had some ticklers on those as well.
So can you, Matt, do you have the ones for next meeting, just for agenda writing?
I have going back to, well, I do, although they're all scattered as I was going through here, so I'm going to recreate. With respect to Chief Cambridge, fees for violations. And enforcement on Dugway Road. Was there anything else that people recall for the chief?
For Chief Cambridge questions?
Yeah,
We were gonna discuss the fines with them.
yeah,
fines, that's right.
Yeah, we're gonna discuss the Dugway Road, see if they had any enforcement data,
Yeah,
any tickets of, yeah.
tickets in
yeah,
general, I think, for
yeah.
parking.
right,
We were gonna avoid other subjects
right.
and,
That might be brought up by.
that might not, that we don't wanna bring up.
And then,
Um,
and then
That's
land
it.
trust,
We can touch base with him on the frost on the fog lines. He and I had that conversation, but if we wanna have it as a group to hear the reply, that's fine.
Did we want to ask him about the Edmunds Bridge?
that
I
wasn't
know
on
that
the,
Allison had a
we
strong
didn't say
opinion.
that, but
oh,
Okay.
good point, John.
Allison, previously, the Richmond PD by way of Allison
Oh,
had a
that's-
strong opinion on that for
It's a
safety.
good, point.
I'm sorry, John, say that again.
Allison previously on Richmond Police Department had a strong safety preference not to allow that small pocket of parking on the Bombardier side of the Edmunds Bridge, you know, that little place where one or two cars can go. Do we want his opinion on it?
His opinion, I think we should, I would like to reinforce that that's a no parking ordinance. and
Yeah,
make
so it
them
might be
aware of it.
worth asking or making the point that it was requested by
It's
previous.
ordinance, yeah. Yeah, I think it's a really good point, didn't think of that.
He has a different view, that's okay.
So Aisha, there were three things that we brought up, we touched on with the land trust. The Beacon canoe access
Mhm.
and update there. We touched on the land trust when we were talking about East Cochran Road. And I'm missing the other one. Oh, Gillette Pond. So on an official basis, I thought we had decided to leave land trust alone on Gillette Pond. But I think Diane had suggested, I can go back, but just waiting to see what actually develops with respect to Gillette Pond.
Are you talking about the Bob Lowe land?
Yes.
Yes, it was, we had decided beforehand, let's give it a season or two.
But in that conversation was mention of land trusts, so I'm just bringing it up. Do we want to bring them into that, or is it just going to be Beacon and East Cochran Road?
I think it's great to ask. When they come in, it'll be October. And we're gonna say, hey, how's it look for parking up there? Have you decided how many spots that might be available?
And we don't have to introduce any particular point like the Bob Lowe.
Okay.
Or just let them know, listen to them. I think that might be good.
Rewind that for me. We're talking to the land trust about the parking at the thing, or Chief Cambridge?
Land trust.
Land trust.
Well, when will it be open? That kind of question.
And how's it
Be
look
plowed
now?
and,
Yes, it's a great question, John. Last year it was not.
all right, and because I said I didn't want to wait until October, should I contact the land trust separately to ask them about Beacon, or is that,
Yeah, go ahead.
okay? Okay,
It's always good to, because if they don't show up, you
Yeah.
don't have the answer, right?
okay,
Do you want to, since you're gonna be communicating with them anyways, do you want to just invite them to the meeting
yes, I will.
for the 14th? And do we want to ask them for 7 o'clock? And then we'll ask Chief Cambridge for 6 o'clock?
I'll suggest that time and see if it works for them.
We love them.
Okay.
Yeah, with the agenda.
Okay, and we're going to talk about Gillette Pond and Beacon, and we're going to ask them about East Cochran at the same time in
Might as
Bombardier, or hold off on,
No, go ahead.
We should ask them.
Just ask
They're
them,
here.
okay, Bombay, okay, all right.
how's things,
Yeah,
all the
okay.
sites, yeah.
Wires in the seat.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
all right, I will contact them about that.
Thank you. That's great.
All right, then we are at the final item. Oh, wait, Lisa, yeah?
I was waiting to see if you asked for questions.
Yes.
If you're ready. Was there anything resolved with the railroad as far as people crossing there? At Cochran Road onto Route 2, towards Route 2?
Nothing was resolved. no.
Nothing was resolved and
Mhm.
the only thing that was discussed is we wanted to know if we should pick up the thread about trying to contract with the Genesee Wyoming Railway about that parking, and it was determined why pay for something that we're more or less getting for free.
Right, yeah, it's
And,
there to take it, yeah.
why would the town take on that liability? So
Right.
that was just, yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. That's probably the best place to leave it. And
All right, okay.
if you had made progress, I would have been all ears, but they're a railroad after all, so.
Yeah.
Mhm. Okay, thank you.
Railroad doesn't stop here anymore.
Great.
All right, well, we are now at adjourn. Do I have a move to adjourn?
Sure, I move.
A second.
Then
Aye.
we are concluding the
Thank you, Lisa.
Oh,
September,
thank you, guys.
whatever, 9th meeting, and stay safe, everybody.